Good evening. I'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please. Mr. Tikas?
Mr. Cooney? Dr. Cortellino?
Here.
Mr. Grau? Dr. Kane? Here. Mr. Mazzacaro? Mr. Morello? Here. Ms. Novy?
Here.
Mr. Palma?
Here.
Ms. Ritchell?
Here.
And I see Mr. Grau.
Right in.
And Mr. Mazzacaro. Shannon Chang?
Here.
And Zion Pickett.
Here.
Form President.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Jim, please read the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law statement.
The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public with advance notice to attend meetings of public bodies of any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with provisions of the Act, the Montville Township Board of Education approved this meeting date. Notice of the meeting has been posted at the municipal building, all Montville Public Schools, the Montville Public Library, the Montville Township Board of Education Administrative Office Building, the Montville Public School website, and advertised in the Daily Record.
Thank you, Jim. Good evening to our high school reps, Shannon and Zayan. We'll be happy to hear your report now.
Good evening, everyone. The Montville Mustangs have had an incredibly impressive season so far. On Saturday, October 5th, the girls varsity volleyball team won the quarterfinals of counties against their rivals Westmore Central. They also won their tennis ball tournament, making their record 14-1. On Sunday, September 29th, the girls varsity soccer team won the Morris County tournament. Their record is currently 6-4-2, and they're seeded 14th in the county. On Sunday, October 6th, boys varsity soccer won their county tournament against number 8 Morris Hills. Their record is currently 6-4-3. And the girls varsity tennis team came in second on their county tournament overall, with first and second doubles winning county titles. The team is ranked number 1 in the county, seeded number 1 in state sectionals, and is number 8 in the state. And their record is 10-1.
With information for our clubs, the marching band traveled to MetLife Stadium on Saturday, October 5th for the Yamaha Cup. There, they placed third. And PAL, or Peers as Leaders, is promoting the Week of Respect this week, which runs through October 7th through October 11th. Members are wearing red on Friday to stomp out violence. With information for our school, on Friday, October 5th, Montville Township High School held their annual fall pep rally. Sports teams performed skits in front of the school, and a tug-of-war between classes occurred. Also, we had a school-wide color war in which each grade wore a designated color. Seniors wore black, juniors wore white, sophomores wore green, and freshmen wore yellow. The class of 2014, or the senior class, is currently holding their annual fundraiser, the Yankee Candle Sale. Also, 23 seniors were named commended students in the 2014 National Merit Scholarship Program. Although they did not continue to the 2014 competition for National Merit Scholarship Awards, commended students placed among the top 5% of more than 1.5 million students who entered the 2014 competition by taking the 2012 PSAT. Senior Deanna Passaretti was one of the 90 students to be invited to the Creative Arts and Humanities Symposium on the Princeton University campus, which featured a series of workshops hosted by the Princeton faculty.
And as for upcoming events, the Montville Township High School Annual Fall Spirit Week will take place next week, October 14th through October 18th. And homecoming is scheduled for Thursday, October 17th, with the homecoming football game on the 18th. And the last event is that the turf field ribbon cutting ceremony will take place on Friday, October 11th, and the home football game against Highland will take place afterwards.
Thank you. Any questions for the students from the board? Okay, thank you so much. We look forward to all those activities. Superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. The first item, on the agenda for me is to talk about the school hours. As our community is aware, we changed the times of our starting times for our schools, our high school, middle school, and our 5 elementary schools. This evening, I'm asking the board to accept a new school hour schedule. The only difference on the schedule is that the middle school, under the early dismissal schedule, under an early dismissal, our middle school would be dismissed 10 minutes later than was noted on the original early dismissal schedule. This is to allow time for the elementary schools to dismiss at 12:40 and then to pick up 30 minutes later. Originally, the middle school was, the day was 8:30 till 1 p.m., and there's no way possible that the buses could have gone between the two routes in only 20 minutes. So now we're moving into a 30-minute difference. We're doing it under both the days on the calendar previously scheduled and the emergency schedule. So that's the only difference under middle school, under the early dismissal schedule, 10 minutes later. So there's a resolution for the board to vote on tonight. Any questions before I move on?
John?
I know we discussed this last year with the time changes that we actually looked into. We discussed that since it was going to be such a large amount to try and move the change in the times to an earlier time for the middle school, we discussed that possibly we could do it in chunks. Is that something that we're going to look into again this year, about moving the time again to get it even earlier for the kids?
You mean looking at it this year for the following year?
Correct.
Well, it's something I think that, particularly based on the kind of rocky start we've had this year with getting the schedules adjusted, and that's later on in my report, I'll talk about that. I think it's something we can consider as the year goes on, but certainly that's going to be another cost adjustment for us if we were to make that change. Okay, any other questions? Okay, the high school media center. Last year we had as one of our goals, and it continues this year, to look at our media centers across the district. I spent time last year with our media center specialists to look at the needs in each of our 7 media centers, primarily focusing on our high school media center. We then asked the Board of Education to place money in a capital improvement budget that would stay in that budget until we made some decisions about what to do, and the board generously put $600,000 in that account, with the idea that this year we would probably ask for a similar amount. In the meantime, there is a very active committee here at the high school that has been looking at the media center, and we're at the stage now where we've been, Jim and I have sat down with Mr. Sanford, the high school principal, and talked about next steps in bringing in the possibility of the design firm, architects, to look at our high school media center and begin to talk to that committee, to Jim, et cetera, about designs for that media center. So I'm very excited about this. I think it's an excellent step for our school district and for this high school to take. That media center, from my perspective, has been in need of a renovation probably for quite a few years for a variety of reasons. So we're moving forward with this at this point in time. We're optimistic that we'll have something to bring before the Board of Education in a plan, and then begin to seriously think about how to move forward with the idea and the funding. Jim, I don't know if you have anything to add about that?
No, what I'll do is, once I draft a request for proposal, I'll share it with the board when we send that out. I typically do that, large projects.
Very good. Any questions? Okay. As Shannon indicated, we're going to be having our turf field ribbon cutting ceremony this Friday evening. It will begin at 6:30 p.m., just prior to the varsity football game. We're very excited. We are looking to thank our generous donors and our community. So we hope we'll have a great turnout. We sent out invitations, both widespread through all of our parent community, to all of our staff, and we sent individual invitations to many, many other community members who have been long-time interested partners in this turf field becoming a reality. So we're looking forward to that on Friday night. Transportation update. We've been somewhat struggling with getting our buses to run on time, as we have faced what I described last time as a number of issues. One is some unexpected road and highway projects that have taken place in and around the community through both the county and the township. We see that this is about to come to a close very, very soon. In the meantime, as we were able to get a better understanding of what kind of challenges that faced, we began to make adjustments in our own bus schedule. I want to compliment Jim Tevis and Tammy Coop, our transportation director, for the incredible amount of work that they have been doing on this since the issues were first discovered. My emails all weekend long continue right up through Sunday to talk about the kinds of adjustments that are taking place, the kinds of conversations that Jim is having with the First Student Bus Company, and not just our local company, but people at corporate headquarters, to be able to make the adjustments necessary to make our transportation system run on time. I do know, based on looking at where we have been with our times, particularly with our middle school, that we have made significant improvements. We certainly apologize to the community. It's taken us a while, but we think we're on the right track. We know that we now have some challenges with our elementary schools because we've been picking up there a little bit earlier to get our Lazar times adjusted. But once the last construction project on the roads ends and we give it a chance to settle in, if it's necessary, we'll be able to make additional adjustments if needed. So we appreciate everyone's patience. And Jim, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add?
No, just that, I just want to echo the sentiment that road construction project, the last one's supposed to be finished the end of this week. So we want to run for about 2 weeks with a kind of a normal, semi-normal schedule, so to speak. And at that point, transportation coordinator and myself will sit down and we'll take a look to see if we can tweak or tighten up some of the times, especially at the elementary schools, to see if we can maybe adjust some of those pickup times a little bit later than they currently are. This was the first week that we finally were able to get virtually every single one of our buses to Lazar, on time. On time being 8:25 in the morning or earlier. We only had one regular school route left that we're still making some minor adjustments to. We'll do that the next day or so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board about any of the items?
One more before I get to the presentations. Each year we have an 8th grade orientation for our 8th grade students as they make the transition into Montville Township High School. This year we've decided to move that orientation from spring to an earlier date, and we'll be holding that this fall. So there are 2 dates I'd like to announce. The first is October 29th at 7 p.m. This will be called our Middle School Information Night, and it's available to parents and students in grades 6, 7, and 8. They'll get to hear about our academic programs and the other variety of activities that take place at our middle school. And then the second one will take place on November 20th, also at 7 p.m., and this will be a middle school sports night. And at that meeting, there will be an opportunity for our, again, middle school students and parents to learn all about the sports that are offered, to meet coaches, and to get a sense of what it can be like for you to be a student athlete here at Montville Township High School. So again, the dates are October 29th, November 20th, both at 7 p.m. And I'm sure a great deal of information will get out to parents about those evenings. Okay. Presentations. Okay, the first one is about our district calendars. As is in the tradition in Montville Township, we try to get out a 2-year version of the calendar, and this is the end of the second year calendar we have. So now we are in the process of looking at the calendars for 2014-15 and 2015-16. So since I arrived in the district a little more than 3 years ago, as we looked to put together these calendars, I've asked for a group of interested stakeholders to get together with me to look at the possibilities and to come to a consensus on what might be a good draft calendar to bring to the Board of Education. So we had representatives from our home and school and parent teachers associations from all 7 schools. We had our principals, we had their assistants or secretaries with them in the room as well. We had representatives from the clergy here in Montville Township to the meeting. We invite many, many people from the clergy. And, this year we had 2 individuals attend. So a variety of people who are in the room. And then I give them particular parameters having to do with the fact that our students have to be at school 180 days a year, that there can be no more than 185 student days according to the MTEA contract. I talk about the fact that I'd like to have at least 4 snow days in the calendar, that we have, based on the contract, 3 in-service days that we bring into the calendar. And so we start with those kinds of parameters, and then some years, we're very lucky, the calendar kind of creates itself, because everything falls out very nicely, and some years it's more of a challenge. So I'll start with 2014, 2015, just point out a few highlights. This is one of those years where the calendar, to some extent, kind of created itself, in that Labor Day is September 1st, nice and early. That's always helpful. We did speak to the principals at length about the fact that there's 2 professional development days in a row, as we had this year. Our principals like that a great deal. They think our teachers like that a great deal, because the first day is really devoted to a lot of meetings. The second day gives teachers a real chance to get everything ready, so when the students walk in, they're very, very well prepared. And our principal said they noticed the difference between having only 1 day at the very beginning before classes start, or 2 days. So we have the 2 teacher days, and then we start school on Thursday, September 4th. In that month, we have 2 days for the Rosh Hashanah. In November, we have the 2 teacher convention days, and we have the 2 days for Thanksgiving. Half days or early dismissal days and so on, they're not reflected here completely right now. They will be built in, of course, for parent conferences and things of that nature. In December, Christmas Day is on a Thursday. We know people like to have the day before Christmas off, so we started that break on the 24th, and that goes through Monday, January 5th. We put our our 3rd teacher conference day as an in-service day on President's Day, February 16th. And then we do have our, in April, Good Friday is on the 3rd, Easter Sunday the 5th, and Passover falls within that week. So, like I said, this calendar can kind of write itself because those things all coincide nicely. Then we have Memorial Day in May, and I guess as is the also custom in the district, we don't like to have graduation on Fridays. and it works out for graduation to be on Thursday, June 18th, and that gives us 184 days, 180 student days, 4 snow days. So that's the 2014-15 school calendar. Our new teacher orientation will be September 27 and 28, August 27 and 28, that Wednesday and Thursday, and we've done that traditionally as well. So why don't we start with questions from the board, I guess, about this particular calendar.
That was good. You said teachers are 183, right? Plus 2 for the new teachers? I mean,
The teachers can be, I believe, 185. I think they can be up to 182 student days and 3 in-service days. So teachers can work a maximum of 185.
Thank you.
Okay, the next calendar wasn't quite so friendly. So I initially shared, I'd say, 2 various versions of 2015-16 with the committee. We had different kinds of conversations about the 2 versions. We had different conversations about where perhaps spring break should fall. And so there was much more conversation about this calendar, and in a moment you'll see why. So let's start with August, because we actually begin in-service days on Monday, August 31st, so the teachers will be returning to school before Labor Day, and they would be returning to school for their 2 teacher days on August 31st and September 1st. And then students would actually start school before Labor Day. They would start school on Wednesday, September 2nd. So they would have 3 days of school before the Labor Day weekend. This certainly breaks with a bit of tradition. I understand that school districts around New Jersey oftentimes do this. Their teacher contract, I understand, allows for it. It does not specify when the 185 days needs to fall. I did have a meeting with Peter Porter, the president of the association, and with Ruth Starkin. Ruth is back there hiding from me behind the pole. Hi, Ruth. I did have a conversation with the 2 of them about it, and they seem to both be amenable toward it. And there was even some conversation about maybe in the future we can start school even earlier. And there were some reasons given as to why that's even helpful. One has to do with the fact that we give AP tests in early May. They're given around the country pretty much on those days. School districts that start earlier have more time to prepare students for that. The other part of that argument is when students take their AP exams, sometimes the month and a half left of school seems like an eternity for both probably the students and the teachers. So with less time left before we would get out of school, that's also a bit of an advantage. We also have competitions toward the end of June sometimes. Many school districts around the country participating in those national competitions. They're already done with school. Students are there. They're participating. They're also pretty relaxed. Our students are often participating and coming back to finals. Or in some case last year, I think we had students who missed graduation because they were participating in very, very important end-of-the-year competitions. So that was the other argument for even like starting school earlier. But we're not going to cross that bridge tonight. We're trying to cross this little bridge of moving our students starting before. I asked the committee, and some of the members are out there, I said, you all stand both next to me and in front of me when the community learns their children are going back to school before Labor Day 2 years from now. And they thought, well, we have a lot of time to prepare them. So that was a plus. It wasn't going to be the 14-15 calendar, it was 15-16. And they thought that it was a perfectly acceptable thing to do. And as we go through the calendar, you'll see why it's necessary, and that's because Labor Day this year for the 15-16 doesn't start until the 7th, a very late start. And if we were to, in fact, then go with our 2 teacher days and start school on September 10th, we theoretically would be going to school until possibly the very end of that week in June, the week of the 19th, or even until the week of the 26th. So nobody wanted that. So we continue beyond, well, in September, we then have we have Rosh Hashanah, and we have a day for Yom Kippur, which falls on a weekday. So we have those days. In November, you'll see the 2 days for teacher convention are in yellow because those dates are not out yet. We don't know if it's that weekend or the weekend after, or the Thursday, Friday then, or the Thursday, Friday, the 12th and 13th. We do know 2 days will exist. Then we have Thanksgiving. Once again, we give the 24th off for December 24th, the day before Christmas. We return to school on January 4th. We have the teacher conference day on Martin Luther King's birthday on January 18th. We do have President's Day off on February 22nd. And we also have an additional day off that weekend on February 19th. In March, Good Friday is the 25th, Easter Sunday the 27th. We took that week for spring break. And in April, we have one day, the 22nd, that's the first day of Passover. So the first 2 days are really the most, I would say, celebrated days. So that's the 22nd and the 23rd, which is a Saturday. We have Memorial Day in May, and then our last day of graduation would be on Tuesday, June 21st. So, thoughts, questions?
I'm very impressed by the committee and yourself on this. It's unfortunate that we can't pick up a couple days on the second year, so the kids could get out on the 16th, similar to the year before, where they're getting out on Thursday. But I guess you don't want to have graduation on Monday. I would assume that's what you looked at, giving the extra day in February.
That's correct.
I figured that.
Right.
But there's the one day you could cheat a little bit now for 3.
Right.
So that would be the last day of school there.
Yeah, we could have, as you noticed, we could have taken that February 19th day,
But the one
but
doesn't.
then we would have gotten graduation on a Monday, and nobody wanted that.
Mike?
I just have one very minor tweak with this calendar. And that's that we go for these things, if we run out of snow days, you start pulling from the April vacation.
Correct.
I would make the first give back snow day the one on February 19th. Because if we get to February 19th and we've already used 5 snow days, I think we'd much, that's not President's Day. I think we'd be much less disruptive if back that day than pull one day out of spring break.
Yeah, so you're saying if we've actually used up our days by February 19th, then take that day first.
Right.
If the board has no problem with that, I can certainly see that.
Let's assume we're not getting more snow.
Mike, you're talking about the 15-16 calendar?
Yes, I am.
Anyone object to that?
That would just be for the 1 year.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say, as someone of Italian heritage, is I am disappointed that the Columbus Day holiday was not returned to either calendar, and in particular the 15-16 calendar, where there seemed to be ample opportunity to put it back. I mean, it has been a long-standing tradition in Montville to have Columbus Day as an in-service day and an off day for the students.
One of the things that I thought about was how to provide the teacher in service day at a time when we might most benefit from it. And putting it close to the beginning of the year, I didn't think gave us the same benefits as putting it later on in the year when we understood what the needs were at that point. But I understand.
So maybe as you develop future calendars, and hopefully you will, you can consider that.
Any other questions? One thing I'll say, because one additional thing before we get to the end of this, and the board, this isn't on the agenda tonight, so the board would vote on this at our next meeting. Is subcommittee members might recall that we didn't have President's Day off initially. I'm not exactly sure where we put that holiday before. But speaking to our Teachers Association, they felt that that was a day that we did have off every year, with that exception, was President's Day. So that was put onto that day.
Yes, Charlie.
When do you anticipate us voting on this?
In 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Just keep in mind that one of the negotiations with the administrators reflected an additional 5 days of work. So I think if we can do the 2-year calendar for those at union at the same time association, it might be helpful. If not, we should illustrate exactly what's happening here.
Yeah. No, I understand. It's difficult because they have vacation days as opposed to, they have vacation days in their contract, which,
Still, they have
Okay, so I'm going to move ahead now to the next presentation, which is on our Board of Education district goals. Each year, at a retreat in the summer, we work with the Board of Education on Board of Ed district goals for the year, and we did that again. And there are handouts if any of our audience members didn't get them. And what I would like to do is take a little time to go through those goals, and then of course ask the board to ask any questions they may have, and our community as well at some point, and move forward with that. So if our board members would like to have a seat out in the audience. Okay. Our first goal, as always, is student learning. And the overall goal is to continue our emphasis on professional development to improve staff effectiveness, resulting in excellent student achievement. There's a variety of things that we're focusing on this year. I'll just highlight 2 of them. One is to work with our teacher evaluation model, which is the model developed by Charlotte Danielson. And over last year, our teachers were involved in 15 hours of professional development to focus on the domains of the Danielson model in preparation for this year. We are asking our principals and supervisors to continue to emphasize that model with our teachers as our year begins and throughout the year, because these are in fact the factors that play into the evaluation of our teachers in the classroom. The evaluation model is based, or is called an evidence-based evaluation system. So the observer needs to provide the teachers with the evidence that allows them to show the effectiveness of their lessons. In addition, the park assessments, these are the new assessments that will be with us not this year, but starting next year. These assessments are done on the computer, starting in grade 3 through grade 11. Our students are generally tested, I think, about 5 hours, an hour a day for 5 days. So each sitting is not very long, just about an hour, over a 5-day period of time. And just today, actually, Andrea, Casey, myself, and Austin Thompson, our technology specialists, were meeting to talk about our continued readiness for that event, which will happen about a year and a half from now. We'll end up, as our budget season approaches, presenting the Board of Education with the initiative to bring a lot more laptop computers into our district in order to meet the needs of this initiative. I know recently Dr. Cordellino, as she represents School Boards Association throughout Morris County, I'm talking about your Karen, as she represents School Boards Associations throughout Morris County, asked me for some facts and figures, monetary figures having to do with these unfunded mandates, and this is one of them. We need to have one computer. How do I describe this? So if we take a grade level of students, let's say at our middle school, so a grade level might have 330 students. Theoretically, we're supposed to have one laptop or computer, one device they call them, for every 2 students. So we don't, even though we have a good amount of computer labs in our middle and high school, we don't, and so we're going to be buying computer carts with 30 computers on each to add to this so that we have enough devices for this testing. Was it about $80,000? Is that what I arrived at? I think is a figure for the computers. Now the good news is once we buy them, of course, they'll be available to our kids all year long for instructional purposes. They won't sit there just waiting for every March for the testing. But we do in fact need to buy them in order to do the testing. So we'll be planning for that throughout the year. One B is continuing to focus on creating a positive culture across the district. We've been working on various aspects of this throughout the last several years. Everything from working on homework reform to looking at, as we did last year, class rank in our schools. This year we're going to turn our attention back to homework a bit, as we want to make sure that the guidelines that came out of the recommendation of the Homework Task Force are in fact implemented. Recently, I sent a letter, and I want to thank our parent associations for always assisting with this, out to our parents about our homework-free nights. And in that letter, I was very clear about the expectations that our parents can expect from our teachers as we go forward with the homework-free nights. The other thing that I would like to see more attention paid to, and I'm going to reach out to the Drug and Alcohol Committee in the community, is looking at something that's a bit more systemic with regard to drugs and alcohol in the community. I don't know if they'd be interested in doing something that is, again, more systemic, that involves parents leaders from throughout the community, clergy, teachers, administrators, students. But I think that if we are to be serious about looking for answers to these kinds of serious problems, we have to do more than just various, I'll call them programs here and there. So that's an area of interest and something that I'll be at least reaching out to the DAC about. Goal 1C is to implement the recommendations from the report on the district music goals of all levels across the district. The first goal was met by the foresight of the Board of Education to create a supervisor of the arts position. Ed Fleischman is the individual who's in that position, very enthusiastic, very excited, and I know that he's looking forward to moving through the other goals. Andrea Salvati, our assistant superintendent, has been already working with our high school administration to look at ways to schedule music in a way that's going to work better for our music students going forward. So we're very pleased that this goal is with us. We're also focusing on the district's world language program, and now we do in fact have a supervisor for world languages in ESL, Lisa Howard, and again, very enthusiastically working with our departments in this area, and I know positive movement forward will come as a result of an emphasis in this area. The other thing that we're going to be asking Lisa to do is look carefully at the Rosetta Stone program. Now it's the second year in our elementary schools in grades 3 through 5, but also being introduced in grade 2 this year. So we are going to, again, take particular emphasis on this program as we now go through it for the second time. The science research program is now in its second year here at the high school, and the students and 2 teachers from that program will be here at our next board meeting to do a presentation on that program. I was able to visit the program. We now have 11 juniors. We had 12 sophomores. 1 student did choose to leave the program. We have 11 students who have come back as juniors in that program, and we have 20 sophomores. So now we have a total of 31 students in the program. And next year it will grow by probably another 20 students or so, bringing us up to over 50 students. And I would imagine we'll probably level off at around 60 students. I can see us having about 20 students in each cohort going forward. It will mean that we'll be increasing the number of periods that our 2 teachers, they still only have 1 period a day with the students, so they meet all 31 students together. It's a lot of students at once for that program, but I can tell you that in 2 weeks, when you hear what the juniors have done since last year and what the sophomores are beginning to do, I think you'll be very pleased. And I think that, again, this is an example of how ideally we'd like all of our classes to start moving in a direction which allows for more exploration and more kind of self-direction with regards to pursuing these kinds of concepts. So we look forward to that presentation. And I talked a little bit about the media center, so I won't say too much more about that. Of course, our emphasis is here at the high school. One of the areas that is kind of falling to Andrea Salvati is to begin to look at the possibility of entering into a partnership with a local university so that we can bring rigorous courses to our students with a connection to a college level kind of focus. Right now, of course, we have many AP classes. They'll remain. They won't go anywhere. But for many students, a different approach to a high-level rigorous class might be more attractive, and that's what colleges can offer if they, in fact, have high school programs that they sponsor. Very typically, the college itself would train our teachers who are interested in the course itself, and then they would teach a version of that course here at the high school. Students can get college credit for that. Again, it provides students with another avenue to take a high-level course other than just AP. So again, we don't know if this goal is going to come to fruition or not. It's something Andrea is going to be investigating and studying and looking at as the year goes by, and working, of course, closely with our supervisors and our high school administration in this area. We're also looking at our middle school schedule. And again, when I say looking at it, that's what I really mean. I'm not sure exactly if there's a strong need to change the middle school schedule, but I think that we've discovered at times enough concern with the fact that we often have very, very high enrollments in some classes, much lower enrollments in others. We sometimes find our students, particularly if they're involved in the music strand, they're unable to take other electives. So we just want to look at the schedule. I am not an expert at middle school scheduling. Casey, who's a former middle school principal, has some background, which is helpful. And certainly we can reach out to other schools, other middle schools, to see what their scheduling looks like. So this is really just a look. I think that from time to time we need to look at things that are in place and kind of wonder what things could be like if they were tweaked or changed a little bit. So that's why this is on here as one of our goals, to take a look and to see what perhaps a different schedule might offer us. Under communication and community involvement, this is an ongoing goal for us. We have a board committee for communication and community involvement. Dr. Matthew Kane chairs that committee. We're looking at a number of things. We're continuing to look at improving our district website. I think we have made improvements. I think we have more to go. So we'll continue to focus on that area. I'm going to be setting up a series of town meetings. The community knows in the past we've done that around some specific topics, like we did it around homework, we've done it around class ranking. These might be just more general, open to questions, topics that people would like to bring up. So I'll be in the very near future scheduling a couple of those. We also are celebrating student success here at board meetings, and we do that in a variety of ways. And of course, in 2 weeks when we have our science research students here, that's one way we showcase our students. I know the high school's interested in, again, having an art show to show work. I've been talking to our principals and supervisors about other ways to bring students before the board and community. So that will be an emphasis for us this year as well. The other thing I'll mention about the Communications Committee is that we have had some very, very good conversations about what it might mean to bring an individual into the district who can focus their attention on public relations so that we can reach out to the community in ways that we haven't been able to do that before, through social media and in other ways. Many districts have moved toward using Facebook and Twitter and other kinds of ways to communicate. So we are, in fact, exploring that as a real possibility to move forward with. Human resources, that area of the district is supervised by Dr. Casey Shorter. One of the things that Casey is overseeing is the Danielson model itself in terms of bringing through the Teachscape medium that model to our district. So Casey has had his hands full, as I described to the board a couple of weeks ago, with the fact that Teachscape has not been working effectively. No fault of our districts. It's happened across the entire state and probably across the country. And Casey has been hard at work developing, I'll call it a paper and pencil or another electronic version of a way for us to, in fact, begin the observation process for our teachers. In addition, Casey serves on the policy committee. Michael Palmer chairs that committee and works very closely with a group of our board members to make sure our policies are up to date and moving forward. And of course, Jim Tevis is our business administrator, working in the area of these business practices. Charlie Grau is chair of our Facilities and Finance Committee. And Jim has been working on air conditioning. While the progress has not been as quick as we might have hoped in some regards, but it is now here, and I think we've now made some good progress bringing air conditioning into the various classrooms in our different elementary and middle school. Those projects will continue to move forward, so that's good news. We also have some safety and security projects that we'll be working on throughout this year. There'll be money in the budget for those. Monitoring the implications of the school start and end times. When I wrote this into our goals, little did I realize how carefully we'd be looking at the monitoring of student start and ending times with our busing and transportation system. So we certainly are paying a lot of attention to that. And through Jim's great work, we've been in very good stead financially and been able to, as a school district, bring great initiatives into our school, bring additional staffing into our school, both into the classroom and bringing back some of our supervisors, which will go a long way, I think, in terms of helping support our teachers in terms of effectiveness and learning for our students. So that is the conclusion. And at this time, I'd ask our Board of Education to return back to the board table for comments, thoughts, questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Freed, for a very concise and thorough presentation about the district goals. What the public may not realize is, besides the PowerPoint presentation that Dr. Freed just presented, he puts together a very comprehensive and methodical approach to every single goal. So each goal, from 1A through whatever number ended, 4, goal 4, there are objectives, rationale, process, and expected outcome. So these are not created in a void. These are created with timelines, with staff that will be responsible for them, and what is the expected outcome of the goal. So I think that's important to mention. Any questions from the board?
Well, first of all, thank you for the excellent presentation. With regard to goal 1G, I was just wondering, the vision that you have in mind with creating a relationship with a college university that supports our interest in offering college-level courses to students, how would that differ from the relationship right now we have with Fairleigh Dickinson, that program?
I can't tell you if it would be different or the same. I know that, one of the things that Andrew's going to do is check with Fairleigh Dickinson in terms of what's possible and what's offered. So it may very well be a similar relationship.
Anyone else? Okay.
Yeah, I echo Mike's comments, Paul. I think this is an incredibly well thought out set of goals, and having been on the board now for a while, I think it's incredibly complete. And thank you for your time and the administration's time as well. I also just wanted to comment. I think that if we are able to develop a strong relationship with the college and university, that is something which creates a separation between our district and other districts. So I think that that's, to me, a coveted goal. And if it can be achieved, I think it's going to be very positive. That things like the science research program are all things which will move us ahead in Montville. Not to say we aren't already ahead of other districts. Finally, I just wanted to point out one of the things that you said about the cost of the laptops, which is about $80,000.
I believe so.
Right. So once again, I know that we talk about it from time to time. So that's an unfunded mandate from the current Trenton administration of about $80,000. We have also had to digest other unfunded mandates recently that have been huge, like the teacher evaluation program. We've not received any money from Trenton for that, have we?
No, we have not.
And the HIV, which came down the pike about a year and a half ago. Once again, a lot of administrative and other hours that are going towards that, we've not received anything.
Yes.
I just wanted to point that out.
Yes, Jen?
I'd also like to thank you, Paul, and I'd like to thank our board. I think these are really well thought out goals that really put our district forward, which is, of course, what we try to do each and every year with our goals. And I'm excited about this, but I'm really excited primarily because I know from our past experiences working with Paul and the administration that we will achieve these goals. And I know that echoes from what you said about how he proceeds and carries forward. But I also want to say that I'm glad that we revisited the homework because that had been a goal, and it continues to be a goal. So I think that the fact that we can go forward and yet still not forget about the things that we're still working on is a very positive aspect of what we do. Thank you.
And just a comment about that, and I appreciate you saying that. And when I stand up here and say that, we're looking to, let's say, review the middle school schedule, or we're looking to see if we can partner, in terms of colleges to create. When I say I'm not sure that we'll accomplish that, I really mean that. But I think that, you don't really take a step forward unless you're willing to take a bit of a risk. So when we look at our middle school schedule and we look at other schools and we look at our students and staff, we may say it's the perfect schedule for us. It's really what works best for us. And when we decide to leave it alone or change it a little, or not, and we may find that we can't find a great partnership right now for college level courses. I hope we can. That's certainly our goal. But we need to make sure that our staff is comfortable being able to both be interested in taking that on. When we began the science research project, for example, we had teachers who said, I'm interested in finding out more. They came forward and offered. Nobody was ordering them to do it. There was, it was motivated people. So I think we have to go forward with that premise as well. I do hope that if we find a college that seems to fit, and it's in someone's area of interest, a teacher's area of interest, they'll perhaps be very motivated to want to bring that forward to the students. But those are a lot of steps to go through. So, but again, if we don't take the step, then we don't know if it's going to happen.
Carmela? I have a quick comment, and it ties back to something that, Paul, you discussed, louder, sorry, that you discussed earlier in the meeting, which was moving the informational sessions for middle school students and their parents from the spring to the fall. I hope the community recognizes that. I interpret that as a direct response to some conversations that the community had had with the board and the board amongst themselves and with you regarding making sure that parents, especially 8th graders, are really fully aware of all of the wonderful programs that go on at the high school, so that those who may be considering other high schools for a variety of different reasons really make an informed decision and realize that the community does want the children to stay here, assuming that it's really the proper placement for the child, which sometimes families make different decisions. So thank you for moving so quickly. I know that quite a bit of effort had to go into analyzing that information, and I think the community appreciates that. I know I do. Thank you.
You're welcome, and I also want to, thank our high school administration, Doug Sanford, his administrators, and also our new director of guidance, Leslie Scheckman, who, upon hearing this, that's something I was interested in. Andrea will tell you how quickly it happened. They moved forward pretty immediately and made it possible. So I want to thank them as well.
Okay, great. Would anyone from the public like to comment on the district goals? Your mic's open? Okay, if something comes to mind, we'll have a couple of more public sessions. Business administrators report.
I just want to take a moment or two, just brief the board on the latest with construction projects. Our Hilldale and high school boiler replacement projects has been slightly delayed. We're looking at substantial completion now by the end of October, middle of October, third week or so. Our high school locker room and new gym renovations projects has been delayed. Substantial completion is now expected by the third week of October. Contingency plans, however, are in place for limited locker use and athletic showers. The high school press box replacement project has been substantially completed. It was opened and used at the last Friday's first home game. Same with the trailer restroom facilities and the concession stand renovations, all completed. The interior improvement projects, district-wide interior improvement projects, specifically the high school guidance suite, is going to start in a couple of weeks. The other three components of those projects, the art room division at Hilldale, is our classroom and media center, and the senior hallway door expansion in the high school will probably be done over the winter breaks. The air conditioning projects are currently ongoing. At this point, we've completed the Woodmont and the Valley View schools. Those air conditioning installations have been substantially completed. Currently working on the Lazar Middle School and the Cedar Hill, Hilldale, and William Mason schools. We're anticipating substantial completion by the entire project by December. And that is my report for this evening.
Thank you, Jim. Jim, before I open it up to the board for questions, I just want to thank you for making sure that our athletic field projects were completed in time for the first home game, and that includes the Mustang Snack Shack, the press box, and the trailer restrooms. I know we were all confident that you would get it done, And you did. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ward.
Are there any questions for Mr. Kivas? Committee reports? Charlie?
Yes, the committee met on September 18th. However, Mr. Tevis and Dr. Freed have given most of my report. One of the areas we're going to bring up was on the transportation problem. That's been addressed. The other area that I was going to bring up about the facilities and turf field and press box, that's been addressed. The other thing that has not been addressed, we did have a preliminary meeting as required by law with the auditor, and we will be having a follow-up meeting for an exit conference. Also, financial reports were disseminated to us, but it's so early in the school year that we're still refining those. It's the end of the report.
Any questions for Charlie on facilities and finance? Okay, are there any other standing committee reports?
We're doing this meeting October 16th.
Okay, thank you. John,
For
yes?
the safety and security, what I'd like to do is possibly towards the end of November, beginning of December, evaluate what we went over last year and see how it's working out this year. We don't set a date right now, but I just want to get people's sense of this way we can potentially do that.
Okay, thank you, John. Any delegate liaison reports?
Just
Mike?
yeah, DAC continues to meet on the fourth Wednesday of every month. I attended the last meeting of another one, the fourth Wednesday of this month, and I just wanted to add that I was very happy to hear and Dr. Freed indicate that he was planning on reaching out to the DAC leadership to try to discuss some possible initiatives to partner with them to work out some things that might hopefully help some of our students to make good decisions and avoid bad decisions that may have detrimental consequences in later life. And I haven't spoken to anybody about this, but I'm sure, based upon my conversations and the other meetings, that any overtures by Dr. Freed will certainly be met with open arms, and I'm sure they're very much looking forward to partnering with him and us.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll be attending the recreation meeting tomorrow night. 7 o'clock.
Thank you, Charlie. Morris County School Board Association had a meeting September 26th, and the keynote speaker were lawyers from the firm of Schwartz, Simon, Adelstein, Nathaniel Simon, Paul Kalak, and Mark Busciolo gave a very thorough and practical presentation on legal issues in special education. We learned about important policies that boards may want to adopt, as well as information about keeping our districts compliant. And I actually shared some of that information with Dr. Shorter. So that was a very good meeting. And then one more, Montville Mustang Association. I attended as a substitute for Mr. Mascaro. Let's see, they're having a tricky tray with the PTC March 25th, so everybody get ready to buy tickets. They indicated that their membership was up. And there was a suggestion by a member of the Mustangs to consider an alternate way of spectators traveling to the home side bleachers, perhaps using the practice field as a passageway, maybe with a short gate or temporary gate, so to protect the rest of the field, as opposed to the situation that we have now is where we walk across the track in order to gain access to the home side. So that was something that they were interested in knowing more about. And they're, did you want, yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's actually something we started discussing just a couple of days ago.
Great.
Steve Toth, myself, Paul Pimentel, Doug Sanford. So we're looking at that. The only concern I would have is to make sure that nobody's walking through there while kids are using the practice field.
Yes.
So let's make sure that the safety is in place.
So Tom, if you would bring that back to Mustangs at their next meeting, which is November 13th. They also talked about sprucing up the stadium with some school spirit like banners, etc. And are there any PTC liaison reports? Okay, I have one from the high school. I was subbed for Matt. You can tell I'm an empty nester. Let's see, at the October 4th with the pep rallies, the PTC may be starting a PR committee, so my ears perked up over that one. They now have faculty department liaisons, which those are working out very well, so thank you to the faculty for volunteering to do that. Reiteration of the March 25th date for the Tricky Tray. And Mr. Sanford and Mr. Natello gave a very thorough update of all the facilities projects that are happening at the high school. Okay, if there aren't any questions or further comment, I'll open it up to public for items on the agenda, including the addendum. Okay. In which case I will, seeing none, I'll close public participation. Motion for items J through O, including the addendum.
Double the agenda and the addendum.
Okay, Jackie and Charlie. Any questions on J? Okay. Item L. M.
Yeah, I have
Troy?
a question on N, the policy. Policy 7434. I'd just like to know the effective date of that policy.
It's retroactive, Charlie.
Once we approve it, immediately.
Does that mean if I ride through the grounds in my car, am I covered under that policy, Dr. Short?
It is.
I can't even drive in my car? Oh, okay.
Just to get back to J8, which is the resolution for Mr. Weber, can you make sure he gets a copy of that, Jim? Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Rachel?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzacaro?
Yes.
Wait a minute, I should have standing down.
Mr. Morel?
Yes.
Ms. Novi?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Dr. Kane?
Yes.
Dr. Corley?
Yes.
Motion's passed.
Thank you. Any old business or additional reports? I do have 2 additional reports. The first one is a joint subcommittee of the board and the township committee, which met on October 1st. From the board, we had Dr. Freed, Mr. Tevas, Mr. Grau, and Mrs. Ritchell and myself, and we discussed a number of potential shared services, some issues that occur at the library parking lot during dismissal, and possibly improving student parking on Horse Neck Road. And we also had a joint meeting, I guess it would be called a joint meeting. It was with Pequannock, Lincoln Park, and Montville on September 25th. And again, we discussed some really interesting ideas about possibly sharing some transportation, particularly during field trips. We explored how the methods that they use for communication to their community. They are paperless, so that's something we may want to explore. Their use of social media. And so it was a very productive and informative meeting. We plan to meet with them again. Any questions? questions? Jackie? And by the way, in attendance at that meeting was Dr. Freed, Mr. Chivas, Mr. Mazzacaro, and Mrs. Ritchell.
Because I'm in a ministry too.
Did you have some?
I did have a question. In regards to the parking on Horse Neck, we were going to reach out to our attorney. Have we done that yet? They had asked, the township had asked us to reach out to our attorney, and they were going to be reaching out to theirs, whether in fact.
No, we have not.
Well,
We will.
Okay, yes, Tom?
Yeah, Sharon, there were some 9 items on your list, your agenda list for the joint meeting with the Township Committee. Will there be a report coming out or some kind of a summary on each of those items?
Yes, I meant to mention that earlier, Tom, I'm sorry, there's no official minutes that have been put out yet, but Jim's been swamped, but Jim's working on it. General board comments, anyone? I just want to congratulate New Jersey students for their SAT scores leaping 10 points, as the Star Ledger put it. The class of 2013 outpaced the national average, so congratulations to the class of 2013 and New Jersey students statewide. Anyone else?
Our next meeting is on a Monday night, is
Yes.
that correct? What's the date of that?
21st.
21st. Because the school board's convention is that Tuesday, the 22nd through the 24th.
If there aren't any more general board comments, I'll open it up to the public for anything you'd like to speak about. Seeing none, move to close public and move to adjourn.